Welcome to our team call tonight, you guys. Usually Wednesdays is a power hour, but I've been sprinkling in a few guest speakers just for you guys to get a different perspective on things, different outlooks and different goals that you might want to shoot for. Before we get into your guest speaker, I do have a couple quick announcements. First, we have our local hangout the first Saturday of October. Pretty sure we decided on meeting up and doing like a local hike or something outdoorsy, or really whatever you want. So there's an event in Fit Vibes Tribe. It's called Local Hangout. So post in there where you're located and get a little group together near you. And again, it can be anything. You can just walk down the street, you can rake, you can go pumpkin picking. That might be super fun. Anything fall, just to get together and use the hashtag Fit Vibes Hangouts so that we can all share it on our social media. Second is Super Weekend. That is the first Saturday in November. So start planning now. Joan, who our guest speaker is, she's actually one of the leaders of the Portland Super Weekend, and Raina, our upline, is going to be there in November. So you can try and go there. I'm going to be at the one in Connecticut, but they're all over the US, Canada, and UK. So find a place closest to you. It's in our online office underneath events and then Super Weekend. So you just type in your area code or zip code and then find one closest to you. And then last but not least, our Diamond Retreat. You can still qualify for it. You need to lock in Diamond by October 3rd. So I think you have two more weeks, 3 more weeks, totally more than enough time for anybody to lock in Diamond, and then just hold for 6 weeks, and you'll be coming to Disney with us in January. So your guest speaker for tonight is Joan Crocker. Some of you guys may know her from the Portland Super Weekends or from Summit. She and I met, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago at the leadership retreat, but she is just crushing it in her business and so amazing. And she is a 10-star diamond, 5 times elite, 5 years in a row. She has led her team to elite, and she's currently premier. So she's going to lock it in again this year. She has been in Success Club for 70 months, and she's been coaching for 70 months. So she's been helping at least 3 people every single month since she's signed up. She is a dog mom. She's from Maine, obviously. She's married, 6-figure earner. Like all of the accolades, she has it. So she's going to talk to you guys tonight and give some tips. And yeah, take it away, Joan.
Thank you. Yeah, super stoked to have all of you at our Super Weekend. Definitely come to that. Autumn's going to be there too, so it's going to be really fun. Nice. So, geez, like when you list off all those accolades, like it just reminds me of like, sorry, George is literally deciding to stretch like directly on me while I'm doing this. It just reminds me of like when I first started, and I would look at those stats of somebody else and be like, wow, that seems like completely unattainable and like craziness, and good for her. Like that's crazy. She's super awesome. But I hope that this call that I'm going to do for you right now is just going to make you see that almost every single top coach leader in this company, they're just there because they're super boring. Like literally it is all about mastering the mundane and just doing the things even when you don't want to do the things, right? And that's how you get the stuff that you want. So I'll start off by just like introducing you guys a little bit, because I don't like to assume that anybody knows anything about me, but I actually started my journey as a coach in late October of 2013. And I had said that I would never coach. In fact, my husband signed up as a coach before I did. And I was like, good for you. Have fun. Like you can be like a big salesy weirdo and you're going to chase away all of our friends. And I want nothing to do with it. At the time though, I also was somebody who wasn't very happy. I had just gone through a very deep depression, with my dad passing away. He actually took his own life. So it was very sudden. It was literally 2 weeks after his first granddaughter was born, who he never met, and 2 weeks before he was supposed to walk my older sister down the aisle. So we found out during my sister's wedding shower, and I was the one who received the call. So I'm the one who got the news. And literally like my world just kind of stopped. And I went into major like eating mode. I would just eat my feelings. I would eat my emotions. I was kind of like a shell of a human being. I was definitely like, I used to be like the happy-go-lucky, like crazy loud Joan that like everybody was like, oh, she's here, right? And I wasn't like that anymore. Then my grandmother got sick shortly afterwards, and she was in the ICU for 6 months. And then during that time, I also got laid off from my job. So I had all of these things kind of like hit me, right? And to deal with it, I was eating. I was depressed. I was watching TV. I was sleeping. You know, and it just didn't seem like I was getting out of it at any time. So I started my job search, but really wasn't finding anything, and kind of relying on my dad's money that he had left me like to get me through. And then Ryan asked me to marry him. And so I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, we're getting married. But still, that was not enough motivation for me to like kind of fix like those things that were wrong within my health and fitness. I started Turbo Fire. I did it on and off for several months. I think I took off like maybe 10 pounds, but that was it. And when I got married, I still wasn't where I wanted to be. And when I got back, I still didn't have a job, you know, so like life just wasn't great. And then I was sitting at my desk one day at work. And meanwhile, Ryan was introduced to Beachbody because he did P90X for the wedding. He crushed it, looked amazing, met a bunch of people in a group, met our upline, Chris, loved it, right? So he was in it to win it. So he signs up to be a coach. And meanwhile, I'm sitting at my desk one day and I see a couple ladies that I'm friends with, and they're doing Insanity. And I had stepped on the scale and I noticed that I was almost 200 pounds. I weighed 197 pounds. I'm only 5'7". And I was like, I've got to do something. And I saw these two ladies doing Insanity, and I was like, can I do that? And their answer back to me was 100%. Like, you know, stop if you need to and take a breath, but jump right back in. Like, if you do this and you do it to a T, and you follow the schedule, like, you will get the best results of your life. And so I came home that day and I told Ryan that I wanted to get Insanity. And he said, great, we're going to sign you up as a coach. And I was like, whoa, I told you I want no part of this. And he was like, no. That's just like what my coach told me to do. You don't actually have to coach. You're just like a placeholder. It's going to help me with my business, yada, yada, yada. Basically, I helped him go emerald. And so I was like, okay, fine. And I filled out the form, like did whatever, the form, whatever it is online, you know what I mean? And I got started. So the stuff came in the mail in July. So it was like the middle of the summer, and I started it. I drank my shake every day. I did my workout every day that was on that calendar. And I literally just would start crossing them off, right? So like I eventually would get to the point where I didn't want to do it, but I would look at that calendar and I would see how far I'd come and how many days I had in a row, and I wouldn't want to mess that up. So that like kept me going. And then there were days where I wanted to quit in the middle of my workout, days where I would start crying in the middle of my workout. But I just, you know, I remember looking at Ryan one time and I was just like, I just want to quit or cry or whatever. And he was like, well, don't do both. So I was like, fine, I'll just cry through my workout. So I just cried. And I mean, if anybody's done Insanity, you know that phase 2, day 1 of phase 2, where you do a 20-minute fit test and then you go into an hour-long Insanity workout, like you basically wonder why Shaun T wants to take your life. You're like, this is ridiculous. And so I cried about that. But what happened was 60 days later, I had lost 30 pounds and I'd lost 27 inches off my body. But more importantly, I had found myself again. Like all of a sudden I was happy. All of a sudden I had energy, and it was so much more than just looking better in the mirror or putting on clothes in the morning and feeling like they fit better or anything like that. It cracked me open to like listening to Gabby Bernstein and attending her events. And then, so that was changing me spiritually. So like I literally went through a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual like change. And everybody from the outside saw that. And they were all like, what the hell is she on? I want it. And so I was like being asked, what are you doing? Oh my God, you seem so happy. Oh my God, you have so much energy. Like, what have you been doing? And that's when it clicked for me. And I looked at Ryan and I said, okay, I get it. Like, you feel better. Other people notice. Other people want to feel better. And like, I can use some of that pain and that bullshit that I went through to help somebody else. Like if anybody is feeling the way I felt before, I have like an obligation to help them feel how I do now. And so we called our coach and I started coaching. The first thing he said to me was post your before and after photo. And I was like, I'm like, my grandparents are on there. My coworkers are on there, like friends from like middle school that I've known forever. Like I can't post that. But then I got out of my own way, and Chris, who is our upline coach, reminded me, like you said, you do whatever it took to be successful and that you're here to serve other people. And so like putting yourself out there and being uncomfortable is part of it. And I was like, you're right. If I can help one person, it'll be worth me being uncomfortable. So I put that post up. I had over 200 likes on it, tons of comments, all of them completely coming from like a place of like love and like good energy and wanting to know what I was doing. I had 60 people in my first challenge group. No, they did not all purchase challenge packs. I let some of them in for free, or like they had their own thing that they were doing, and that was fine. But within my very first month of coaching, I made $1,300. And that is when it turned for me from something that was just like, oh, I can help people feel better physically and emotionally, to wait, what could this do if I went for this like full on, head on, like balls to the wall? If I did that in a month, if I made $1,300 in a month and now I don't have to, touch my salary to pay for our rent this month, what if I went at it full force? And so I did. And within 6 months, I matched my salary, quit my job, and I've been a full-time coach ever since. And so I'm going to give you a caveat there. When I say I matched my salary, because income disclaimer, all of that jazz. But when I say I matched my salary, what I mean is week by week, I got paid at my plan A and I got paid at my plan B, and they were the same every week for several weeks in a row. And it was at that point where I was like, like I'm having so much joy over here. Like I feel like this is my passion. This is my purpose. I feel like all of that crap that I went through led me here, just a decision to make myself feel better led me to my purpose and my passion, and something that can fulfill everything that I've wanted in my entire life: freedom, finances, abundance, all of that stuff, better relationships, more friendships, etc. And then I've got this thing over here where I feel like it's kind of in the way and it's kind of holding me back. But it was still like a really tough decision, you guys, to make that decision to go full-time coaching. That's just scary no matter where you're at. But it was the best decision that I ever made, And from there, you guys, in my very first year of coaching, I went from brand new coach to a 6-star elite coach. So within 1 year. So how I did that, here's how I did it. I sacrificed stuff, right? And I hated that word in the beginning, sacrifice, because to me it was always like, it felt like you were going to have to sacrifice something forever. But it is a very short-term sacrifice for a very long-term gain. I know we've all heard that quote over and over and over and over again. Like, if you're willing to live like no one else will now, you can live like no one else can later. And I literally kind of like took that to heart, right? So instead of going out for happy hours after work, instead of watching TV at night, instead of going to bed at 10 p.m. like I used to, I started going to bed at midnight or 1 a.m. And those things I did consistently. I started working this business 30 to 40 hours a week on the side of working my day job 40 to 50 hours a week, right? So now I was working like almost 100 hours a week. And I wasn't sleeping as much. I used to joke. I was like, I don't even know if we still sell it, but we used to sell like wrinkle cream or whatever, right? And I was like, yeah, I get it now. Like, you guys are making us work to the bone, and then like, I get wrinkles and I need it. So like, I adjusted my schedule and I quilted things into my day differently. So instead of going out to lunch with my coworkers, or sitting in the, conference room during lunchtime. And sorry guys, I'm sick right now. So like, I know my nose is like whatever, and I sound like, whatever, but, see, you do things even when you are sick in this business. But, I used to skip the conference room, and instead I would sit at my desk and I would get stuff done for my business. Before I went into the office, I would make sure that in my car, I would go ahead and I would put a post up, right? And then when I was in the office, I worked. And then at lunchtime, instead of, just messing around, it was, I'm going to go put a post up on social. I'm going to go check my messages. I'm going to send out a few invites. And then I would do the same thing before I left the office. So I luckily could connect right to Wi-Fi from my computer in my car. So I would do it that way. But of course, you guys can do it from your phone or whatever. So then again, before I left the parking lot, it was, okay, let's put up another post. Let's talk on social media. Let's whatever. Let's see who's messaged me. Let's message them back. And then I would get home, I would do my workout, I would make dinner, and then I would sit down and I would work, and it was go time. And the thing is, you guys, I wanted to be doing it, right? I became almost addicted, because when you start doing it and you build that momentum and you start seeing results, you want to keep going. You want to see more results because it feels good. Like forward momentum is something we as human beings crave. So that was what was happening. The more work I put in, the more results I was seeing, the more results I saw, the more I wanted to do it. And within 6 months, I was able to leave my job. So that's basically my story, but I have a few tips here. Do you guys have any questions before I move on? No. Good. Cool. All right. So here's the thing I used to say, right? And I used to say this before this book just came out, but I'm going to tell you to order this book because it's awesome. Marie Forleo just came out with a book that's called Everything is Figureoutable. And because I was in the social media world before this, that's what I used to do. I used to do SEO and social media for clients. And so I knew of Marie a very, very, very long time ago. And I remember even starting new jobs within my marketing field that I would be like, everything is figureoutable, right? Because you walk into that office that first day and you're like, shit, I don't even know what I'm doing. He's going to give me this assignment, this project. I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if it's what they want. I don't know if it's what the client wants. Oh my God, I have to call a client. That's scary. Like, I don't even know where like the closet is that has like the pens and papers and shit. Like, I don't even know my coworkers. Like, but then you'd sit there and you go, everything is figureoutable, right? Like you went to school for the first time. You walked for the first time. You can make off that list for yourself of things that you figured out as a human being. And you know that you can do it again because that's what we do. So everything is figureoutable. And if it is something that literally cannot be figured out, it's probably something that like scientifically cannot happen because everything is figureoutable. It's true. And so like when you're like, oh, I really want to be a 15-star diamond. I want to make $1 million in this business. Well, guess what? Other people have, which means you can. And if it's in your mind that you want that, it's because you can do it. So you just need to break it down and figure it out and go for it. So that's how I approach this business with everything is figureoutable. And I did not need to know everything to begin with. I just needed to start. Okay. And that's the biggest thing. You can get so overwhelmed with, I don't know what Success Club is. I don't know what Emerald is. I don't know what this means. I don't know about genealogy. Like what's the policies and procedures? I didn't even know that there were policies and procedures like before I was like a 5-star diamond because I just went. I had no idea who corporate was. I had no idea who any of the top coaches were. All I knew is that I was in a little bubble and I was focused moving forward and looking for people. That's all I was doing. Who can I help next? 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 And one of the things I had to do in order to do that as well as the everything is figureoutable is I had to also get my head right. So because I had that big, hairy, scary, like, oh, I don't want to come off salesy thing going on, that just didn't change just because I had results and I started coaching. Like it was still there. So I remember reaching out to Gabby Bernstein and she messaged me right back. And I said, what do you do when you know that what you have is something that can completely change someone's life? And you know it for a fact because it's changed your own, but you're afraid to ask them if they want to do it because you're afraid of coming off salesy. And she said to me, be unapologetic about the service behind your business and no one will take what you're doing the wrong way. And so I was like, okay. So before I would sit down and start reaching out to people, I would get in the right headspace. I'd be like, I get to offer people like more time with their family. I get to offer them help. I get to help them get out of debt. I get to help them pay for their college tuition. I get to help them, buy a new home or travel or whatever that is. I get to help, people who are sick. I get to help people feel better about themselves. I get to help wives feel sexier for their husbands. Like I would just like list off all of these things, these beautiful, beautiful things that we have to offer through this business. Like no more stress, no more fighting with your, spouse about like money and crap like that. And I would list it off and then I would go invite. I would go put up a post and I would go invite. And when I put up that post, you guys, I didn't like post and ghost. Like I didn't like post it and then like never look at it again. But I posted it and then I would release it. I didn't sit there waiting like who's liked this post? Like who can I reach out to? Like, oh my God, it's a dud. There's only like 3 likes on this, like, like anything like that. Instead, I just didn't care. I put the post up and I said, whoever this needs to serve will see this right now. And then I would go ahead and I'd move on to my invites. So those are a few things that I would do. All right. Now, the other thing that I would do is I took a little bit of time in the beginning to look at other coaches on my team, like what they were posting. So I could figure out kind of like, what are they doing? But I did not look at them and compare. Okay. I looked at them from a standpoint of like, okay, what is working for them? What is not? Kind of like a little analysis. And then I moved on and started doing my own thing from my own brain. But I did notice something. They're boring. Top coaches are boring. Like they're really boring. Like super duper freaking boring. Like if I see one more coach like try on an outfit from like Target and tell me all about the seams and the pockets and the whatever, I'm going to die. Like, oh, I got this at TJ Maxx for $18 and it's got black and white stripes. Yeah, I can see it has black and white stripes. Like that's what it is. Oh, and I like the fit, like whatever. And so they're boring, right? But they do the same thing every day. They figured out what their audience likes and they just do it consistently. And they do all of the behaviors of this business consistently. And that's it. So that should also make you feel really good that you don't have to be some like super entertaining person. You don't have to have all these crazy stories behind you. You don't even have to have like ridiculous results. You just have to be completely consistent and master the mundane in order to be successful in this business. So one of the ways to do that is to master your story. Figure it out for yourself. Figure it out and breadcrumb it every single day in different ways and be really authentic about it. When I was in college, I had this professor. His name was Naeem Inayatullah, and he was for a politics course, actually. And it was called Ideas and Ideologies. And what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to study like the isms, right? We were supposed to study like communism, feminism, like socialism, like whatever, all the isms basically. And there were different readings and articles and things that we would have to, read each week that focused on that particular one. And then we'd come in, he had us all sit. We weren't set like regular style in desks. He put all the desks in a big circle. So it was like a big conversation. And we would sit there and we'd dissect what we did and learned and whatever. And then there were some papers due like 2 for this class, which I never passed in. And he started like being like, so what's going on, Joan? And I'm like, well, it's boring and I don't want to write about it. And he was like, well, you talk about it in class and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I know. But like, I just have a lot going on and I didn't really spend a lot of time reading it, but like I can talk in like conversation because like I hear about it and like yada, yada, yada. And he was like, okay, well, what can we do to get you working this? And I said, I don't know. And he was like, well, what's going on in your life? And I started telling him a little bit about that. And he goes, can you write me a paper about that? And so what he wanted me to do is he wanted me to write him a paper about my childhood. And so I did. And I came into his office and he highlighted one sentence in the entire paper. And then he said to me, can you write another paper on this? And I said, yes. And then I came back in the next time and he highlighted another sentence and he said, can you write an entire paper on this? And I said, yes. And it was so easy. And it was very free flowing. And I was doing exactly what he wanted me to do, which was talking about the ideas and then where they came from and then why I thought that way in the next paper and then why I thought the way in the next paper and then digging deeper into those ideas and ideologies and where they came from. And so he got me to do it. But at the same time, it broke down my story for me and it made me realize a lot of things that I didn't know before. So that's what I ask my team to do now. I'm like, write your story out and then let's highlight a sentence and let's have you talk about that, right? Or let's have you write your financial story. Let's have you write your physical, your well-being, your health story. And then let's have you write your story about like your relationships and lifestyle, right? So like you have those 3 different components. Now within that, think about it in brainstorm moments that you can relate back to that. And when I say that, like for instance, like a financial story, it could be something as little as like, maybe you remember your parents fighting all the time about money. And, as you grew up as an adult, you were always so nervous that like you were going to be like that. And then, for Ryan and I, like we fought about a Christmas tree one year because we couldn't afford it and I didn't have ornaments for it. And I, wanted like the biggest one. And then I wanted to go to dinner and like, he was like, we don't have money for this. And like, we fought about it. Right. And now it's like, oh, I get to go and pick out the biggest tree I want. I bought bunch of beautiful ornaments from like Anthropologie that I'm in love with. Not only that, I travel all the time with Beachbody and I collect ornaments every single time I go to this new place. And that's what I look at on my tree. And it reminds me of where I've come from. And it reminds me of that. And I relate it back, right, to that financial story I had of my parents fighting when I was younger. Or maybe it's that you went through the checkout at a grocery store and your card didn't go through. And it totally reminded you of when you were younger and your parents would tell you you couldn't have this, that, or the other thing. Or it made you fight with your spouse, or just made you feel less than, or whatever that is. Like, I want you to take little pieces of your story and relate them back, okay? And tell your story every single day. Also, like things like, you know, your physical journey. Like, I remember as a kid kneeling down next to my girlfriends and my thighs were bigger than theirs. And I was like, and from that moment, I immediately thought that my thighs were big, that I had big thighs. Well, I've danced, played soccer, and skied my entire life. My legs were muscular and my friends' muscles were not there. They didn't do anything. So like from that point on, I spun it and I changed that in my head. And now I talk about how Beachbody and working out has made me like so grateful for my strength. And I can see the tonality and how like, you know, I feel really good in a pair of jeans when I've got the bubble butt and the rest of them have pancake ass and like whatever that is, right? So like you can remind yourself of those things and you can sit down and you can create your story and you can talk about the details. So once you understand where they came from, then you can think about a detailed story that just came up and how it relates back. And you just tell your story all the time. You tell your story all the time. One of the biggest stories I tell all the time that gets me the most people is how when I was younger, I hated school. I was like, you go to school all day long, 5 days a week, and then you have 2 days off, and that's just stupid. Life is backwards. Like, why do you only have 2 days to do what you want to do and 5 days where you have to do something you don't, and then you graduate and you have to work, and it's all the same thing. Like, literally had like a midlife crisis at like 7 years old. And my parents were like, dude, change it. And I was like, I don't know how to change it. So then I kept thinking like, what do I do? What do I do? Can I invent something? Can I, you know, start a business? Can I open like a restaurant? Like, and I just never knew what to do. And then going through what I went through led me to this. That's a story that I tell and people can relate to and they reach out to me. All right. So breadcrumb your story every single day. Top leaders, you guys, are really good at that. And if you go look at their pages, you're going to notice that they tell their story over and over and over again. People don't get sick of it. They don't get it, whatever. Number 2, consistency. So share every single day. It's literally the mundane, you guys. It's inviting, share. Like, this business is so easy. Like, you literally just post, invite, do your PD, do your workout, drink your shake every single day. If you don't do it one day, you don't stay in the same place. You're falling backwards. Okay. It's always like, if you've ever read The Slight Edge, it's the chart that goes like this, right? You're either going up or you're going down. And so if you take a day off, you are literally telling yourself, the universe, your family, that what you wanted isn't that important because you're slipping back from getting it. So you want to make sure that like when you go to watch that TV show, instead of doing your invites when you know that you should have done your invites that day, you ask yourself, is this getting me closer to what I want or further away from it? That's something I ask myself every single day when I'm like, I'll just do that later. No, you'll do it right now. Because half the time you spend so much energy thinking about that thing that would have taken you like 5 freaking minutes to do. Like, I'll sit down and I'll be like, oh my God, I just sent out like 100 invites in 15 minutes. What the F was my problem? Why was I postponing that? Or, you know, your workout. These days we have workouts that are like 20 minutes. Like, and you sit there for an hour thinking about how you don't want to do your workout. Just do it. It would have been done 3 times by now. Like, so, you know, those are the things that you have to stop and ask yourself, is this getting me closer or further away from what I want? And keep in mind that when you start working on those little areas, like I started with my fitness first, you guys, which then cracked me open to my spirituality, which then cracked me open to this business. And so it's really neat when you start working on like one area, how it immediately starts lifting other areas, relationships, finances, etc. So like if you're struggling with your business right now, get really freaking good with your fitness and your nutrition and just start sharing it, because that'll speak for itself. And then there's like sort of more like meat in your messenger, right? Like when you invite somebody, you've got the meat to back it up. They're seeing what you're doing every single day. So if the business part is super scary for you right now, focus really hard on your PD and focus really hard on your fitness, and it will just kind of come. And you can just put in that, you know, minimum effort every single day and at least keep moving it a little bit forward, because progress is progress even when you can't see it. I love when Jeff Hill said at Summit a few years ago, he was like, you know, history when it's being made is it's rarely recognized at the time, right? Because it's small. It's the small things that you're doing every single day. It's not like you just blow up overnight. So keep that in mind. Number 3, recruiting coaches. I know Sam asked me to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about it really, really briefly. Recruiting coaches becomes really easy when you start talking about coaching. Like, so many of you are so good at like throwing up a call to action, like join my challenge group, or like messaging somebody and being like, have you ever considered doing this like group with me? But you're not asking them about coaching, and you're not talking about coaching. And when I just mentioned to you guys telling your story, I also mentioned finances. I also mentioned like how I didn't like to go to school and work and those sorts of things. And so I incorporate all parts of my story because I know that the biggest way I can change somebody's life is to get them involved in coaching, not just challenge groups. And so I ask them. So number 1, I talk about it. I talk about it on social media. I talk about everything you do. You guys can relate back to coaching. Like every single thing you talk about can be related back to coaching. And I know you're like, oh, you don't work right now and you make 6 figures, so it's easy for you to talk about coaching. It was actually a lot easier for me to talk about coaching in the beginning when I was working for another job, because I was working my other job and then I was like, oh my God, I just made $500 this week. Oh my God, I just did this. Oh my God, I just did that. I just used this money to do this. I just used that money to do that. Now it's my full-time job. I'm like, I feel like people are just thinking I'm like bragging about my life. But that was really cool back then. You can also talk about like where you want to go with coaching, like build that dream, build that vision, talk about your story, right? Why did you get started in this in the first place? What do you want? Where are you going? What are you doing today to get there? If you're in a cubicle, talk about how you're not going to be in this freaking cubicle forever, right? Like talk about those things daily on social media, talk about them in posts, talk about them in lives on your Instagram, talk about coaching. Run info sessions. I don't care if you signed up as a coach yesterday. You can run an info session on coaching. You can literally be like, dudes, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've been a coach for like 2 weeks, but I've made this much money and it's super fun. And if you want to make money with me, jump on this little info session. I'm just going to go live for like 20 minutes and tell you what I'm doing. Doesn't have to be this big drawn out thing, literally. Or talk to your upline and say, hey, can we all run like a coach info group together and like invite to it so that I can, get some new coaches and building coaches in this thing. Okay. Then also, if you're signing somebody up with a challenge pack for a challenge group, at the end of it, do you talk to them about coaching or do you just throw them in the group? Because I always talk to them about coaching. At the end, I say, I know we never talked about it, but if you want to make your money back and like have some people in there for more accountability, we can literally like invite a few of your friends or throw a post up on social and I'll help you like message them if that interests you. And they're like, yeah, I want to make my money back. So like, I mean, not all of them will, but many of them will be like, okay, how do I do that? Right. And then you go ahead and you help them. You ghost the conversation for them. You help them message those people. So that's the other thing. So info sessions, I post about it. I talk about it. I invite at the end of my signups. Then if I get an objection to you guys, so objections are a perfect time to talk about coaching as well. I'm just so freaking busy right now. Like I can't add anything else. Well, what are you doing to help with that? Like, cause what's going to change, right? Like, what are you doing to make it so that you're not so busy in the future? For me, I felt like that too. And I started doing this and now I have this. Feel, felt, found, right? So, oh, I can't afford that. Like it's too expensive. Well, I thought the same thing too at first, but now that I know that there's a financial need, have you ever considered coaching with me? Those are the things that I say to get people starting to think about coaching. And then of course, you always are like, recognizing your challengers for the things that they're doing really well in the group, or you're checking in on them and you're being like, dude, like you're crushing it this week. Or like, I love seeing your results. I love seeing you show up in the group every day. You're doing everything it takes already to be a coach. Have you ever considered joining me? Right? Have you ever considered joining me? Is not a hard question to ask, because if the yes or no answer, you still get to continue talking, right? Because it's not like, do you want to coach? It's like, have you ever considered it? And so that's a great way to do it too. All right. Keep things simple is number 4. Literally. I think that's because I turned the page on my notes. Georgie, we're good. Thank you. It's what I said before. Do your workout, drink a shake, do your PD, invite people. That's really it. And then the last thing is focusing on your mindset. So I told you I had to clear my mindset before I really got started because I had that worry about being salesy. Gabrielle Bernstein has been huge for me, you guys, in terms of like releasing fear and really focusing in on my own self-worth and like getting rid of like that ego. So that's a big one for me. I used to do a meditation. I used to listen to one of her lectures every single day, actually, that was called Manifesting Your Desires. And I had that like on replay. And so I was constantly keeping my mind in a really great place. I was also meditating every single day. I would meditate to a couple of her meditation albums, but there's also this particular meditation is called Ek Onkar. It's the only meditation that comes with a warning, because what you're thinking about while you do it will come to fruition. So you want to make sure you're in a good place before you do it. And so I used to do that every night. And then I would literally like say out loud what my desire was to the universe. I would thank the universe for that coming true. I'm going to plug my computer in or it's going to die on you. And then, oh, sorry guys, 1 second. It was plugged in, but the plug came out when George jumped ship. And so I would do that, and then I would, say my desires out loud to the universe. I would pray. I would thank them for coming true. I would visualize it, and I would go to bed. And that's what I did my entire first year, every single day. And this business, I love when Gabby says that the universe works fast when you're having fun, and our purpose on this planet is to be joyful. So when you can focus on the things that are bringing you joy, and you focus on the why of why you're doing those things, and every single day you remind yourself of all the gratitude that you have and why you're grateful for everything that you have, and you're focusing on what you want, it is impossible to not feel good about what you're doing, because you can't feel grateful and sad at the same time. So I focused there. And when I focused there, my business was like on fire. Now I will tell you, there's a trap here where when you start feeling really good, right? When you start doing the things and getting the things, sometimes you pull back because you're like, oh, it's just all working, not realizing that that daily practice is what keeps you there and got you there in the first place. So when you start doing these practices, stay on them, keep on them, and make sure that you just keep that tunnel vision and you can do it. So stop comparing yourself to others. You can absolutely 100% do this. Anytime you see another coach promote or anything like that, celebrate the crap out of it, because it's a sign from the universe that like you can too. And that's what I have for you tonight.
I love it. Hey, well, I know there's some questions, but what was the last meditation that you said? I missed that.
I will type it because it's weird. It's Ek Onkar. And the one I listen to is by Jagdish. It is like 24 minutes long. You don't have to do it for 24 minutes. That's a really long time to start meditating, especially if you have never meditated before. But you can start at like 3 and then do like 7.
Cool. Let's start at the top. So some questions. When you sit down to work, what does that look like for you? And maybe you'd say now, but also when you started.
It hasn't really changed much, to be honest with you. And I think that's something too that you guys should know, is that, whether you've been in this business for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, doesn't matter. Like the vitals are the vitals, and you still should be staying in them. And I stay in them for a couple reasons. 1, they work. And 2, when I'm in the trenches like that, I know what's going on and I can help my coaches where they're at. So what I do, one of the things I love to start my day off with, and I do every day, is my personal development. I read, and I also do my meditation and my journaling. That is before anything else. I will not pick up my phone before that. Then what I do is I sit down and I send out happy birthdays, because I think that that's fun, but I don't do the day of, because then you just get lost in the clutter. Instead, I look ahead at whose birthday is 2, 3 days down the road, and I send them a happy early birthday and ask them if they have anything special planned, because then I'm not getting lost in the muck, right? So people are responding to me. Then what I do is I go and I look at like anybody that I've recently added to my following or my friends list. And I go and I just send them like a quick, like, hey, like checked out your, page, yada, yada, yada. Love meeting new people here. Just like wanted to wish you good vibes today. And I put them for like a follow-up like 2 weeks later. I don't ask questions. I don't like tell them I'm a coach. I don't like try to like really strike up a conversation. It's really just like a hi and like hope you have an awesome day. What else do? I put up a post, and then I typically go, and my follow-ups are probably what takes me the longest during the day. I do my follow-ups. And then like most of my day after that is consisting of just like adding to my stories, doing my workout, that sort of thing. That's what my day looks like.
Love it. So simple, which is all on the business activity tracker. And how long does that take you?
Oh God, I have no idea. I am not like the most organized person. I'll have like live with Kelly and Ryan on while I'm doing it. I'll get up and like make food. I'll like, play with George and I like to do things when they don't feel like work. So like, I'm not like a person who like tracks my time. I'm not a person who like is super organized. Like if I'm like in the midst of doing work and I decide like I want to go for a walk, I will. Like, that's just how I run it. So I have no idea time wise.
I love it. You just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else.
I'll just say I don't go to bed if it's not done.
Oh.
That's what I did my first year too. If I had like the busiest day in the entire world when I first started coaching, if I had not gotten my invites out that day, I just would not go to bed until I sent at least like 10 invites, because that's just how you keep your business moving forward. And then I knew that it was late and I probably wasn't going to get a response, but I knew that when I woke up in the morning, I would have some responses back so that it would make me feel like I'd started something.
I love that. And you're right. It takes up so much less time than we make it out to be in our heads. Like I'll wait all day to send invites because I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I could, like you said, you can do 100 so fast.
And you're like, wow. What wasted energy.
All day. So do you ever feel wired to your phone, aka overworked?
I don't, because at first I did, and I think at first, like the very first year I was a coach, like I said, I wanted to be doing it. Like you were hard pressed to get me off the phone because like that's where I wanted to be. Like I wanted my laptop, I wanted to be on my phone, I wanted to be working. The second year I would say that I was probably like a little bit burnt out. And so I had to try to make like a better schedule for myself. But like I said, I'm not really great with schedules. But what I do know is that when I focus on me first, meaning my workouts, my meditations, my personal development, that sort of thing slows me down and makes me kind of like refill my cup. And then if I have family around, like they're my top priority, right? So like just this past like 4 days, so I don't have any kids and stuff like that yet. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, that's easy. You don't have kids. Like you don't have responsibilities. You don't have a job anymore, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. I worked like 90 hours a week to get here. So I watched my sister's 3 boys who are crazy, like 8, 6, and 4. And like the 6-year-old has some like behavioral issues. So he's just really, really tough. The 8-year-old has like EpiPen, like crazy allergies. So like making sure he doesn't die is like, a whole job in itself. And, and they're just crazy banshees. But what I would do is like work while they were at school. And then when I needed to go pick them up, like I was present while I let them play on the playground, and like we would make dinner together, and like, we would do baths and dinner and like PJs, read them a story, put them to bed. And then it was work time again. So like, I don't know if that's like, my phone was not in my hand while they were there. You know what I mean? So like, I guess unless I'm doing something silly, like taping them for their antics, like of like drinking Energize with me or whatever. They don't drink the Energize. They give them water with lemon, but they dance and drink Energize with me. So unless it's something like that, I don't. But I will tell you guys again with the whole sacrifice thing that I said, in the beginning, if you're glued to your phone, then you're doing something right. It's short-term sacrifice. And I'm so sick of people like beating themselves up for being on the phone or being like on the computer all the time, or, being on calls all the time or something like that, especially in the first year of this business. Because if you were starting an actual like physical business, like you were, a brick and mortar business, right? You would be tied to that place, like literally like hundreds of hours a week. And nobody would say a freaking thing about it because that's just what happens. And yet, because we're female, and I don't know if there's any male on here, but because we're female and because it's a business that we can run from our phones, it's not taking it as seriously. But you are sitting on top of $1 million, a 7-figure business where it could be multiple 7 figures a year. And yet we're not supposed to treat it like a business and work as hard as we can. And so I would say to anybody who gets in your face and says something about it, to tell them to screw off, because you're building your business and it won't be like this forever. It's short term, but you're doing it for a reason. And if it's just you feeling burnt out, then make sure that you're setting that time. Make sure that it isn't just, being on there just to be on there, and that it is actual productive use of your time.
That's a good one. Shauna said, how do you tackle tracking your follow-ups? I've been trying different things and it's been a struggle. I'm looking for more ideas.
I use Teamsy. I use Teamsy and I do it in a way that works for me. I don't use it how Teamsy uses it. So essentially I use it basically just for follow-ups. So I don't look at their, what are you using currently?
I've tried different things. I've done Asana, and I've tried making like a Google spreadsheet. I've tried like writing down names in a notebook.
Yeah, none of that worked for me.
Yeah, me either.
I tried it all. Asana, I'm like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Like, I can't do it. And then like, what do you use, Sam? Streak? Like, I hate that. I hate it, like with a passion. I'm like, this is a lot of shit. And then with like, I did work pen and paper for like the first like year or two that I did the business. But I did it in like a different way as well. Like I would use, here, I'll actually show you. I have an old planner okay. So I would get a planner. It doesn't matter what kind of brand you get, but what I would do is I would get one that has, can you guys see this? That has like the days of the week on one side. So it's a weekly planner. And on the other side, it has notes. So that's how it would be set up, right? So what I would do is like I would plug in like team call, call with, one-on-one with this coach, etc. But what I would also do is if I was speaking to somebody who was really close to signing up and say they said like payday or something was Friday, I would write their name and put like payday Friday. Or like if I was talking to somebody and they said they were pregnant, like I would be like, I would flip in my calendar and like like the month before they were due, I would put like something to like check in with them. And then around their due date, I would put something. And then like 6 weeks from then, I know that's when they're going to be able to work out again. I'd put their name there too as like a reminder. Right. Or if somebody I was talking to who we were talking about like health and fitness already, I would be like, this wasn't for every single person I talked to, you guys. It's for people who like seemed like semi-interested but had other things going on. So it's not like I was constantly putting people in dates, but like somebody who was like, oh yeah, I totally want to talk about that, but I'm getting ready to like, bring my daughter to, dance class, her dance recitals on Saturday. So on Sunday, I would be like, check in with so-and-so, her kid's dance recital was yesterday, right? So I would be like, hey, how's the dance recital? And I want to get back to you. I know that you said you wanted into the group, like blah, 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 blah. Make sense? Cool. Over here, the lined area, what I would do is this would be my hot list. So these are the people that I would reach out to like and keep in front of me every single day. These are the people who are in play. And so it's the people who have either said maybe they might be interested in a group. They might have said, what their goals are to me so far. Maybe we're discussing workouts. Maybe I've sent an enroller. Like those are the people that are in that hot list, right? So, or maybe they were somebody who messaged me directly about something or liked a particular post that was like a call to action. That's like my hot list. Anybody that I just spoke to, like randomly, I would tell you that I wrote their name down on a list, but I'd be lying to you. I just wrote them down, and then like every once in a while, I didn't write them down. I would just reach out to them, and every once in a while I'd scroll the beginning of like my Facebook, and I would just go all the way back up. So it's not the best way to do things. But the way I do Teamsy now is very similar to the way that I did paper and pen. So Teamsy, like my follow-ups for like somebody who's on the hot list, they're going to be like every day I'm going to set them as a follow-up. Somebody who, told me like next month will be better, they're just going to pop up for me next month. Somebody who told me payday is Friday, they're going to pop up for me on that Friday because I loaded everybody in there. And so they're all in there already. And if anybody isn't in there, I just add them real quick while I'm setting up the follow-up. But I like how with Teamsy, like I log in, I click the follow-up tab, and it just tells me everybody I need to follow up with. And I quickly just reset their date that I'm going to follow up with them. I don't add notes in there. I don't tag them with anything. I don't add any like stars. I don't change them from like coach to like prospect to coach when I sign them up. Like I don't do any of that other stuff. All I do is use it as something to remind me to follow up with that particular person, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah. And Ambreen said, is it better than Excel?
I hate Excel. Also, like I said, anything that feels like work to me, I don't want to do. So Excel feels like work.
It's funny. My very first like system that I came up with was Excel, but I did the same thing as you were like the top half was follow-ups by day, but then the bottom half was months. And I remember putting like 6 months out, like so-and-so is going to have her baby or like so-and-so is going to root canal, things like that.
But it's so huge, and then it like becomes so long, and there's so much, and it's such a pain in the ass. TMZ is just really, really easy.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions, you guys? Let's see if I've got any. Oh, someone said, could you type that sacrifice quote here? I want to make a reminder for myself.
What did I say?
At 8:49.
At 8:49. Was it the one where if you live like no one else, you can live like no one else? That one?
Maybe. Hold on. Let me see who said that. If you said that, you can. Amber Covington. Is she still on?
I don't know if she's still on. Yeah, I think isn't it Dave Ramsey? I think it's a Dave Ramsey quote. If you just look it up, you'll find it. Cool. Yeah, Dave Ramsey. If you're willing to live like no one else, later on you can live like no one else can. If you're willing to live now like no one
it is Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
He uses it for his financial peace programs.
Perfect.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to let me know and I can send them over to Joan. But thank you so much. Oh, wait, someone said something. Yes, that is one of Dave Ramsey's. Yeah. Short-term sacrifice for long-term something success.
Long-term gain, long-term success.
Whatever inspires you, you can end it with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can just rewatch this. You recorded it. There you go. Boom.
All right. Thank you so much, Joan. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, girls, for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Oh, wait. If you're still on, let's do a quick boomerang. Always forget. Almost everyone stayed on. Awesome.
You're like surprised by it.
Okay.
You guys are still here.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Bye.